Thank you so much for everybody joining here. And we're just going to each introduce ourselves briefly. I'm Glenda Key. I am the CEO and founder and owner of Key Functional Assessments Network. Jane?
Hi, everybody. I'm Jane Effner, and I'm the Director of Business Development for Key Functional Assessments Network.
And I'm Bob Brainerd, owner of Central Maine Conditioning Clinic in Auburn, Maine, and I'm a licensed athletic trainer.
Okay. So we've asked Bob to be here with us on this process to share his experiences and hopefully enlighten people on some approaches and ways to do things in this field of industrial health, industrial therapy, and share his knowledge and ideas to give everybody a better rounded picture of what is available out there. So Bob, to start off with, if you could give us an overview of where you're at, what you do, and the services that you provide. And if you could let us know also how you got into this field. So it's all yours.
Yeah, well, thank you, and thanks for having me. But I started back in this field in 1991 as a traditional athletic trainer, covering sports events for colleges and local area businesses, and brought in to do some preventative type of medicine. But what it expanded into was a group of physiatrists and a group of orthopedic surgeons using me more of individuals that had chronic pain, couldn't get back to work, that went through surgery, traditional therapeutic services, et cetera. So I went from the traditional seeing athletes for recovering from ACLs and sprains and strains and get them all in the ball fields to actually working with individuals that had failed traditional therapy or traditional conservative and non-conservative treatments to get them back into the workforce. So that's how our business started. And I went from working from an occupational clinic to open up my own sports medicine clinic. And it very quickly shifted not only to a sports medicine clinic that included a sports medicine physician and a couple athletic trainers, to now working in occupational medicine and having an occupational doc and starting to expand our services. But we started out more on the preventative side and then on the chronic side. So folks would bring us in initially to do an assessment, workplace assessment and risk analysis of their company on the health insurance side and the work comp side. And then we'd come up with a plan to reduce healthcare utilization and work comp utilization and the cost and return on investment. And then on the back end, when individuals went to docs and went to physical therapy that were sort of the chronic and needed either a phase 2 sports medicine type approach or needed some additional types of treatment that they weren't successful, like I said earlier, then they would refer to us. So then gradually it morphed into our services kept expanding within the company. And the companies were happy with our services and the way that we delivered it. But then when they went to a traditional occupational 10-day med company, they didn't get the results that they had working with us. They were in delayed recovery. They would go to therapy for 16 to 50 visits. They'd be taken out of work, et cetera. So they relied heavily on us on trying to keep their employees at work. So our company has shifted into sports medicine, occupational medicine, case management with our nurses and health coaching with our nurses. And our focus is more on preventative well-being type of medicine, if you will, but we still do a lot on the chronic side too, where individuals have been out of work for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and they're trying to get back to work. And again, they're coming for a non-traditional approach. So our integrated team has expanded. Our services on site, our occupational companies have expanded. We take care of 40 companies. We're on site at 26 companies. And we have one clinic in Central Maine that services all our local companies. And we've also now expanded services on being a 10-day OCMED provider, as well as having a concierge primary care physician on site. So a number of different services, but again, really focus on well-being, prevention in nature, and also moving away from insurances through the years, trying to do less and less workers' comp, less and less health insurance, more cash basedness, with the concierge type of models that we have expanded. So like I said, we're on site at 26 different companies now and really trying to prevent people from coming into our clinic. And that's when we're successful, when we prevent them from getting injured, illness, diseases. If we can prevent those numbers and have a good return on investment on all the services that we do, then our company is very successful. So it's kind of an oxymoron to prevent individuals that decrease our services in our clinic and we become more successful.
Awesome. Awesome. So when you're talking about the specific services that you provide, do they fit into like categories? Can you articulate that a little?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we could just take, if I look at the categories, we do a sports medicine model, we do an occupational model. Then I would also say that we do a community health and wellness model. So we have three buckets that our sort of practice falls into. If we're talking about the employer model, the occupational model, we put that into two buckets. We put that into the workers' comp aspect, where we're looking at the work comp dollars, what their actuarial costs are, what their mod rating is for a company, what their exposure is, what type of injuries, how many injuries they have, what the utilization. So that work comp, where we're really trying to reduce that injury. The other side of it is on the health insurance side, where we're doing the same thing. We're looking at the utilization of health insurance, and we're trying to drive those numbers down. And we have a model in place to actually put on-site services to really reduce the numbers that companies spend for health insurance. And obviously, those that are most loss sensitive are those that are either partially self-insured or fully self-funded. So our service line for the employers go into those two buckets, really trying to look at the workers' comp part of it, as well as the health insurance, and then the utilization. And so we're brought into companies on both sides. We're brought in for healthcare utilization and try to expand on the work comp side. Then when sometimes we're brought on the work comp side and we try to expand on the health utilization, because it's the same providers that we have going on site at our companies. And we're just trying to take care of the employees. We're trying to do it on a preventative, on a sort of management fee schedule where we can keep them out of the medical model and keep them away from insurances.
Boy, is that awesome. So great. So you were talking about some of the outcomes, the successes with employers. Can you like define, through numbers and, specifics, what do you actually look for? What do you gather upfront? What do you compare with, and that process?
What can we influence? By coming on site, what numbers can we actually influence and make a difference with? Can we make an influence with emergency room visits? Can we make a difference with physical therapy visits? Can we make a difference with outpatient treatment, with diabetic education, and those type of things? So we start looking at all those numbers, and then we target it and then give them the return on investment. Workers' comp is the easiest. Why? You go in, you said, you've had X amount of injuries, right? You had X amount of indemnity, you had X amount of lost time, you had X amount of medical treatments. It costs you this, your mod rating or your actuarial numbers are here. We're going to reduce your injuries. We're going to target those injuries. We're going to target the reason for those injuries. We're going to reduce lost time injuries. We're going to reduce medical injuries. In your mod rating, you're going to see it come down really quickly. That's easy. So we moved away from all these very specific, really cool metrics. And I still love them today. I talk about them all the time. The numbers we've changed from body mass to blood pressure to cholesterol to people off medication to changes. I mean, it's just incredible numbers. But it was just, you became a software company in a statistics company versus actually doing the work that you're trained to do. So just using the tools they already have by working with their insurance company, the third-party administrators, their work comp, where you already get those quarterly reports, you already know the utilization, you already know the mod ratings. Those are the numbers you're trying to work. So let them provide the statistics for you, and then really try to make a change and see what you can really identify and what you can put in for programs that are going to reduce those numbers.
Now, within that, Bob, who specifically are you more likely to work with on an employer site? Is it HR? Is it workers' comp? Is it Who?
That's a great question because it depends on the size of the companies. So we could actually work with a business owner. I could work with a person in charge of safety and workers' comp. Sometimes I'll go and work with HR because HR wears 9 different hats,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
It depends on the size of the company that you.
Right. So 2 points that you bring up, I think, that are important for our audience today is the fact that this is this area of practice or service line is best delivered when it is an inter and multidisciplinary team. And we are just trying to emphasize that building a team with OTs and ATCs and PTs is a great way to go, because not everybody realizes that. That's one point that I think is something we wanted to emphasize.
I think as well, you're reaching out with your nurses and your physicians, and you're actually including them in your in the services that you provide. You know, I'm sure you grew to that, but you know, that's definitely within the realm of, you know, doing these programs.
My passion and my goal was always just to create an integrated community health center. But people use those words all the time: sports medicine, integration, wellness, prevention. But I truly haven't found anybody that does it the way we do it. Truly, right? Mm-hmm. But what I can say to you is that you can be a one-person business. We have 26 employees. So you can be a one-person business, which is how I started. I had a medical director that I hired part-time just because I needed him to oversee me when I was doing certain things, right? Because of my licensure and my status. But my background also, not only do I have a BS in athletic training in advanced degrees to supplement that, but I also have a BS in health education, exercise physiology as well. So when I went on site to these companies, I was doing health coaching. I was in Glendale when I started working with Key back in 1991, right? One of the things that we started to do is we started doing work assessment tests. And even though our work assessment tests have kind of grown a little bit, gone a little bit different directions with onboarding and a lot of different kind of advanced programs, but the foundation of the work assessment test from a job placement, from a pre-employment to a return to work, a readiness for work, to a disability or to a functional capacity and back to work. On the work comp bucket, one of the things that was really successful was the work assessment test in all those 4 areas. But then I could also do other skill sets. I mean, I actually could do a lot of the ergonomics. I could do the health coach. I could do nutritional coaching. Obviously we can do some of the, I don't want to say medical because again, it was wellness and prevention, but that was my background: health education, exercise physiology, and athletic training. So you put that together. And I was a one-person business, but then a doc could come in with my medical director and he could do some of the medical things that needed to be done, and I could assist him on those fronts as well. So it could be, be very successful to have 1 or 2 people that would go into a facility and make a difference. But one of the things I've always said is what makes this model for me successful is not necessarily our clinic. It's actually going into the businesses and really identifying what it is that the utilization or the metric that you're really trying to change. Because when people have to come to us, right, it's much more difficult to get people to come to you than if once you go into a business with 500 employees, I have 500 active people, and look at the needs, right? From rehabilitation to wellness coaching to pre-employment screening and all the processes that go along with that. Return to works, which is one of the most underutilized, misunderstood, and problems that we have with occupational injuries, because people get injured non-OC, or they go out for a hip surgery or shoulder surgery. Their doc sends them back to work, not knowing what their job is, not knowing what their physical ability is, and they just enter going back, yep, they're back to work full time, and they get injured. Now it's a work comp injury. And so there's a huge opportunity at every level, from a one-person business right up to someone that has 30, 40 employees. So if you're truly going to be an ArcMed program, one of the things I think would make a person successful, and you can do this as an AT, you can do this as an OT, you can do this as a PT, you can actually get additional certificates in drug screening, auditory testing, and spirometry. And now in your work assessment test, now you go on site to a company, you're invaluable. You're a physical therapist who can do auditory, you can do spirometry, you can do work assessment tests, you can do rehab, you can do ergonomics, you can do all this prevention. Who wouldn't want to hire you, right? So, but that's what you have to do to make yourself marketable and successful, but also to make a difference for that company and show the return on the investment. One of the questions you didn't ask, and you said you want to, is how do you market this? I have never once marketed this.
It speaks for itself.
You go into a company that's got a mod rating of 2.1 within a year that, and usually they say it's going to take you 3 years. They're getting a return on investment within 6 months to a year. And they're like, oh my God, why didn't we do this before? And then they go to a meeting and they're sitting in an HR meeting or talking to an employer. What did you do to do that? Well, contact this guy. I don't know everything about him, but just contact him. He came in, he'd say, we need to do this. We did that. I trusted him. That's how I've been successful. We have not once put an ad in the paper or anything on the TV or anything on the radio station. It's just, you go in understanding what it is that you're trying to change. You believe in wellness, you believe in prevention, you put the tools in place. And again, in a different interview, I would say there's 4 specific things you need to do on site to be successful. But number one is the work assessment test on the work comp bucket on site is a huge part of it. It leads to everything else.